Folks, welcome to another edition of Down the Road. I am coming to you live from the Delta in Fargo, where we have an opportunity to visit with a number of people about the future of economics here in the upper Midwest and in the state of North Dakota. Absolutely great event that the Fargo-Moorhead West Fargo Chamber puts on every year, where people come in and they spend their morning and they bring speakers from all over. In this particular case, it was North Dakota and Minnesota heads of the Department of Commerce. A little bit later in the show, Shannon Full's going to join us. Shannon is the head of the FM Chamber, and I'll probably just call it the Chamber because that's how we refer to it here. But Shannon has some real good ideas on how to fill some of these job openings. When I think of job openings and the people we need to fill them, and I've said this before on Down the Road, I think of Ndscs, the North Dakota State College of Science, because of what they've done for years and where we would be without them. I'll tell you what, we'd be in tough shape without them. That's why when he walked by, it was like, you have no choice. You got to come on Beck News with me. Harvey Link is the interim president of Ndscs, and he joins us now. Harvey, see, when you left home today, you said, I'm going to be on TV today, right?
No, I certainly did not plan that.
But it's painless. It's better than the dentist. Know that.
Well, that is true. I had a dental appointment a few weeks ago, and this is less painful.
You know, you served Ndscs in so many different capacities. And, you know, you had reached that point where everybody was high-fiving and you were getting awards on a national scale. And, you a bunch of us had a party and you rode off into the sunset. And the next thing you know, they're saying, Harvey, get back here. We need you to be the interim president. I mean, first off, I want to thank you for doing that. Second off, are you enjoying it?
Yeah, it is. It's very gratifying. It's a great institution. It's wonderful to be able to come back and interact with so many of my colleagues and the business and industry communities again, and the community all the way around. So yes, there's a great deal to enjoy.
For the one or two people out there that don't know everything there is to know or really have a concept of Ndscs, this is your chance. Explain it to them.
You know, Ndscs is a truly unique institution. We are what I refer to as a 2-year community and technical college, where you really blend together a combination of technical education in a true college environment, all the way from our student life and our student leadership activities through our general education, but then also being able to experience a whole multitude of technical programs, transportation-related programs, manufacturing programs, health career programs, business and robotics and agriculture, and just a whole variety, building and construction. I know I'm probably going to leave something out, liberal arts and transfer, but I mean there's a whole variety of them there for the individual that comes. And then, not to mention that, workforce training for those individuals who need some upskilling after they've been in the workforce for a period of time.
My wife is a graduate of Ndscs. She got her LPN degree there and went on to get her RN degree and do what she did in the area of nursing in her professional career. Her time at Ndscs formed her. She knew she wanted to be a nurse. She knew that. She knew she wanted to work in the medical field. But because of going to Ndscs, she found that road to it. And I think that just says there's so many people with that experience.
You know, one of the things that's been really gratifying to me, having been at the institution as long as I have, had the opportunity to talk to individuals like your wife or like other former students that I had on that, and other students that have come back and experienced Ndscs, and they've talked about it, how it transformed and changed their life. We talk about that a lot. We do make a difference. We change lives. Just yesterday, I was in the office, and 3 former students that attended Ndscs in 1970, I guess it would have been about 1973 or 4, something like that, came back in, and they stopped in and visited because they wanted to come home. Mm-hmm. And they wanted to see Ndscs, and every one of them had used their career, used what they had learned at Ndscs and made a career out of it.
You know, what I always brought up, and I've been an advocate and tried to use my role in the media oftentimes to make sure people know the story of Ndscs, but all of a sudden it's cool. Before it was, oh, okay, that's where you go here, and I fought hard in my time in the legislature to make sure those credits from Ndscs found their way into the higher ed system so that it truly was a system, and we accomplished that.
We accomplished
You
that.
and I worked hard on that together. But all of a sudden, it's cool. I'm not talking about the students. They always knew that. They always knew it was a great place to go and meet people in your life and get a great education. But the public itself, the leaders out there in the business community, now know how valuable it is, and they're relying on it more.
They're relying upon it, and for somebody who's been involved in this profession for as long as I have, I've watched it go through that whole transition of where it's gone from almost being forgotten about or not talked about too much to coming back and saying, yes, this is where the cool kids go. This is where the trendy areas are, and there is really exciting and encouraging occupations and there. And the great thing about it is that these are where you can build careers. It's not just a job, and it is a career, and there are it takes a multifaceted individual who has to apply their knowledge, who has to be able to work within the industry, and they can see the results right up close. So it's really enjoyable.
So, the process of where we're at, bringing in that next leader. And I have to tell you, being such an advocate of Harvey Link and, of course, the Link family, your mom, Grace, and who's still with us, 100 and what?
103.
Oh, man, what resolve. And then you've got, of course, your father, who served as governor for years in North Dakota, and probably one of the most loved governors the state's ever going to have. You know that.
Thank you.
And I know that. But when you see a North Dakota family like yours, and then you see it come back in and fill that gap, fill that void, you have to ask, okay, what's the process? Are they going to get a new president? Because in my mind, they can wait as long as they want, Harvey, because I kind of like the one we've got now.
Well, that's generous and very kind. You might want to wait that long, but I don't know whether
I'm scared of your wife right now.
I don't know if my wife would really go for that so much, or some of the family. They're in the process. They've gone through a thoughtful process in going through, and they've gone through the selection process. The State Board of Higher Education runs that process. I'm not involved with it. I will facilitate and help any way I can. But they're going through the process right now, and they are now at the point of where they have identified 3 finalists that will be then interviewing before the State Board of Higher Education. That'll happen on March 31st.
Okay.
And sometime in what I anticipate the afternoon of March 31st, they will name the 10th president of Ndscs. 10th.
In all those years.
In all those years, we're in our 119th year, second oldest 2-year college in the nation. Many people aren't aware of that. The first residential college in the 2-year college in the nation, and it's right here. But you think of that, the legacy of those individuals, 9 individuals over 119 years. You know that there's some very long legacies in there, and the next president will have the opportunity to build on that. There's been some great legacies that have gone along. I've had the opportunity to work with 4 of those presidents, under 4 of those presidents along the way. Each one of them leaves a legacy on that, and I know the next president will too.
Yeah, well, I think that's well said. I think that is part of how the whole thing kind of, as the process unveils itself, how it's going to work out. I mean, Harvey, how do you take it and expand it? Because Ndscs is here, and it's a hands-on institution. For those people who want to take it down the liberal arts road, they're mistaken. It's hands-on. But how do you take it and you expand it to the point where it fills even more of the gap, the void we need?
Well, I think really what it comes down to is really that partnership arrangement. We used to talk about partnerships with industry. Well, that certainly is critical. We absolutely have to have the business and industry partnership. We have to have the partnership with K-12, because really that's where students begin, and that's where they get that initial exposure as they're going along. So we have those partnerships, and we have to have the continued investment from the government, from our public sector. that comes out there. We have to have that in there, and so it's going to take an investment. And
but you're putting it right, an investment. We need workers so bad in this country right now, and so what better way to deal with it than to invest in it? And this is a place you can do that.
That's right. And the thing that I always observe is that as we look at it, and I always talk to our departments, and I'll say, look at that company, look at that business that you're working with that you consider to be at the top of the game, that the top of their game. And that's who we need to be when we emulate something. That's who we need to appear. That's who we need to align with. That's how our facilities should look. That's how our equipment should look. That's how our instruction should take place. But of course, we know what kind of an investment that takes, because things are changing so very, very, very quickly, and we are unfortunately we are facility intensive, we are personnel intensive, and equipment intensive, and that's really what it takes. That's not to say that we shouldn't include efficiencies and robotics and automation. In fact, that's some of the things that we're incorporating into virtually all of our curriculums. But we have to figure out a way to get that done, and that takes an investment in and by itself. Because if you think of the instructor that started in this industry, that's got 20 years of teaching experience, and look at how the technology has changed in that last 20 years. Now all of a sudden our instructors need to be upskilled, both in the technology and in how they teach it.
Well, I think you can see, folks, why I said that they can take their time picking the next president, because we have a pretty good one right now in Harvey Link. Harvey, I think on behalf of all of North Dakota, and I don't mean to speak for everyone, but I think they'd want me to tell you thank you. Thanks for coming back. Thanks for dusting off and saying, you know what, I'll fill that time. And thank your wife as well.
I will.
Because it really did. I mean that in all sincerity. I've known your family for a long time, but it changed your retirement.
It did, yeah. But it, you know what? Opportunities come, needs come, and when you're part of the fabric of a community, and I like to believe we are. We're part of the fabric of the community of the state. How do you not? And I don't mean that self-righteously.
Well, you don't have a bragging bone in your body, but here's the other part. I get to say that my friend Harvey Link was president of Ndscs, so I get that. So thank you, Harvey. Thanks for coming on.
You're welcome.
When we come back, we're going to have more from the conference here. It's the Economic Outlook that's being sponsored by, but yet expanded to many communities. But we're going to focus on Fargo, Moorhead, West Fargo, Dilworth, places like that. What could it mean for your community? Stick around and we'll be part of that conversation with you right here on Beck News. Good to be back with you here on Down the Road. I mentioned before the break how we were broadcasting from the Delta here in Fargo. The Chamber, which is how I refer to them, but you can talk about Fargo, Moorhead, West Fargo, Dilworth, and quite frankly what I found out today was that you can talk about any chamber because it's pretty expansive in terms of what just happened as they looked at the economic outlook for the future. Shannon Full is the boss when it comes to the chamber. She might not like me saying that, but she's certainly the one that I count on, and she's the one that runs it. Shannon, good to have you join us.
So great to be here, Joel. Thank you.
Tell people what happened in that room and just end it.
It was a spectacular morning. We had a Midwest Economic Summit. This is, we've done the Economic Summit for about 20 years just as the Chamber, but we added a new spin. I came last year and was really looking at how do we give more access to people to great events like this. And so we had a 3.5 hour event today. It had the president of the Federal Reserve Bank, Neil Kashkari, was here in person. Here in person, gave a phenomenal overview. Dr. Scott Bollier from Ndsu spoke. We had 2 industry panels that had different industries of our top kind of industries in the region. And then both Commerce Commissioners, Minnesota Commerce Commissioner Steve Grove and North Dakota Commerce Commissioner James Lamont spoke. But the best part about this was we offered this as a co-hosting opportunity for any chamber in the 3-state area, North Dakota, South Dakota, or Minnesota, that wanted to join us. So we had 24 chambers that joined us.
That's a lot.
It's a lot. And they live streamed this in their own communities to give access to their members to this great content. And then we also created the model that it also became a revenue opportunity for them. As a longtime chamber exec, I know that revenue is a big deal for chambers. And so if we can bring high quality, high caliber content to our rural communities, our small towns, that's what this is all about. So it was really fun.
So I understand, because it is a lot. But if I'm Welton's Tire Service, I'm active in the Lisbon Chamber, and the Lisbon Chamber could give you a small nominal fee, and then they could hold a virtual, they could take advantage of this, and then Welton Tire can come in and give them $25 or
That's
$50.
exactly it. That's exactly.
So that's perfect.
Yeah, so we charge, when we talk about a nominal fee, we charge each chamber only $500. They paid us $500 to help us put this on.
Right.
It was very expensive.
You brought in some
So we didn't
speakers.
make a lot of money on that part of it, but the partnership of it, and then what happened, so here's a perfect example. In Brookings, South Dakota, they're probably the chamber that took it to the greatest extreme.
Okay.
They live streamed it. They were going to have about 150 people in person at their own viewing party, that they got their own sponsors that went to their bottom line revenue, and they sold tickets. So that's the kind of thing that we're trying to figure out. How can we do innovative partnerships that it's really all about, we want to grow our small towns, we want to grow our urban communities.
But it's going to happen more. I mean, if that's a model that's going to work. I can tell you, representing small towns for years. I mean, you always look like you're from the outside looking in, and so if you can be in the room, albeit in different ways, Shannon, you're onto something there.
Yeah, and I'm a small town Wisconsin girl. So
of course, you got red hair. All of us redheads are from small towns.
But I love the values of the small towns and want to help our small towns thrive. So
I want to talk to you a little bit about, the audience that you're visiting with right now. Beck News has a real dedicated audience when it comes to a lot of the rural areas as well. I mean, Beck News has gone out and Beck Sports has walked into every small town gym you can and brought all of this to life for people. I don't want you to lose the opportunity to talk about Ignite, to talk about to this audience what you're working on there.
Right. So workforce, without a doubt, workforce is the number one issue facing all of our companies. It doesn't matter what size company, where you're from, workforce is the number one challenge. So what we also know, part of that workforce is our future pipeline. And so our students that are in middle school, in high school, in colleges, they're looking, especially at the middle school and high school, they're trying to figure out, what is my career path going forward? And so Ignite, and it's just Ignite FMWF. If you go to Ignite FMWF, you can actually create a login at no cost to you. And if you are a student, if you are a job seeker, if you are a parent, or if you're a company and you're looking for workforce, you can go in and start your exploration process. So there's 1,300 career cards on there with people like us talking about, here's a day in the life of the job that I do. And each of those videos are connected to average salary, to schools that provide training for this, to courses. We have about 260 courses that are free to take in all different categories. They're about 45 to 90 minutes in length. Things like effective communication, to financial management, we have some that are medical device specialists, to manufacturing, to welding. Those videos give you a little bit more, or courses give you a little bit more training, and then it populates a badge to your resume. So students that want to access this can populate a resume right alongside them. Again, our whole goal about this is getting more students and job seekers equipped with the right job for them, and exploring different opportunities. And then eventually, I'm hoping that we can scale this entirely statewide, so that companies, when they go on and create a profile, they can identify if they are looking for job shadow, internship, apprenticeship, and then students can find it there. Teachers and faculty can use this. There's a whole curriculum in there that they could use. Let's say we want to do manufacturing week one of the weeks, in the classroom. I could go in and I could find 6 or 8, 10, 12, 15 manufacturers, and I could identify different videos. I could identify.
They'd fall
trainings.
over themselves.
Oh my
to
gosh,
do this.
it's amazing.
I mean,
It's
Doosan
great.
Bobcat, they'd be like, "Excuse me, Shannon, where do I sign up?"
Yes,
I want in.
they're already a great partner. They're on the site. You'll see them.
I don't doubt it one bit. And so basically, what you're doing is you're starting a fire in the belly.
That's why it's Ignite.
Yeah, I never put those two
Yeah.
together.
Yeah.
I did too. I had that. I want to talk to you a little bit about how we solve a problem that I don't know is solvable, but I know that you're not afraid to go after and try to tackle. Joel and Sue Heitkamp had 2 kids. Ray and Doreen Heitkamp had 7 kids. People aren't having 7 kids. I mean, there's exceptions. We all can look around the church and see who took up 2 pews rather than just 1, but the truth of the matter is there isn't as many people coming through to be part of the workforce as there has before. Plus, now you look at post-COVID, and you're looking at people who found out that they can live their life in different ways versus the way they were doing it before COVID. In other words, you know what? I don't miss my job that much, kind of a thing. How do you fix this? How do you fix the people that are your members, that are thriving in our communities, that we need to manufacture and produce what they're doing, but they can't find the employees?
Yeah, great question. Not an easy one to answer, and it is not going to be fixed quickly. So this whole talent challenge and crisis that we're having, and it's all over globally, right? So what we have to do is we really have to take a very intentional, multi-pronged approach to this, and it's everyone's responsibility. Companies need to step up and they need to invest in their people. They need to look at opportunities to invest in the community. We need companies that are saying, I will provide job shadows and internships and that type of thing. We as organizations, when we look at it, our mission right now on this is to stay, this is on our radar, and I think I mentioned this to you before. So radar to me, I like acronyms. It's all about retention, acclimation, development, automation, and recruitment. Those are the things that we have to focus on. And so whether we're pushing the states, and we are, to tell our story better about what are the assets of our small towns, but we also have to take responsibility to say, why do I want talent to come to my community? Why do I want them to come to my company? What's our differentiator? Those are the kinds of things that we need to look at. And then we have to look at and have a very open mindset. This is the big deal. We need a mind shift about the fact that we do not have enough bodies. You gave the perfect example. My grandparents had 7 kids. My parents had 3 kids. We had 2 kids. We're going down, right?
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, we have to be open to net migration, immigration. We have to look at how are we going to recruit international talent, because we desperately need it. Our companies need it. Our communities need it.
And find some of the hardest workers you can possibly recruit and find.
So true.
That are making such a. I love the fact that you're willing to go down that road and be part of that conversation. We're not talking about anything illegal as much as what we're talking about. Here we are. We've got great jobs. We've got places where you can succeed at life, and I call it my fishing boat stories. You know, I mean, you take. I'll use my nephew as an example. Chandler was never going to do any better at school than I did. I mean, we weren't going to sit there and they say, you know what, you're the valedictorian. But I think we're both bright enough to do what we wanted to do in life. He now is working at a rural electric and succeeding immensely. And if you go by his house, you're going to see that 4-wheeler. You're going to see that fishing boat. You're going to see that pickup jacked up a little bit. You're going to see that smile. And so how we get more Chandlers, how we get more like that, is, you know, your radar, it's all about recruitment and retention. And we're not going to lose him now.
Right. And
we're not going to lose him.
And it's about giving value to every position, right? Like every position, whether you're in the trades and professional services and manufacturing, every one of those positions is valuable and needs to be looked at as a career option, not just a job.
Yeah.
And when we said, as communities, we need to help people make a life here, not just make a living. And that's what we need to think differently about.
Well, Shannon, they recruited you to come here. You did come here. You're not letting any grass grow grow under your feet. So I reserve the right to have more of these conversations, okay?
I would love it. Thank you so much.
Shannon Full, ladies and gentlemen. What are you doing in your town? I mean, what are you doing in your community to keep the workers that you need? Because many small businesses are just, for lack of a better way of putting it, giving up, saying, look, this is what I've grown to. I could grow to this. But because of the employees, I can't get enough employees. I'm going to have to stay at this. And that's not what any of us want. We want it to get to there. And so these are more conversations we're going to need to have here on Beck News. These are more conversations we're going to need to have with you. So you can always reach out to us with ideas, the type of ideas Shannon just shared. And we will have more conversations like this. So stick around, more coming to you right here from the Economic Summit right after this. Welcome back to Down the Road. Scott Bullier. Wait, the best way I can describe this is if you want to feel old, just be me in this chair. Because Scott Bullier is well, first off, he's got his doctorate. Second off, he is the Dean of Business at Ndsu. And third off, he looks like this. Scott, good to have you coming down the road with us. The Dean of Business at Ndsu, and I'm not trying to make a joke out of that just because I am old, but, you've come to the head of that department at a pretty young age. I mean, you rose to the top pretty fast.
I did. I think I was the youngest in the country. I'm not 100% on that, but I started 6 years ago, if you can believe it, and was in my 30s, and have had a wonderful run and love the college and love the university, and feel humbled to lead it each day, and it's been a lot of fun.
Well, I tell you what, Doctor, they chose well.
Yeah, thank you.
Because, you've heard, and I know you were one of the speakers here, and we'll get to what you had to say, but taking a chance on that generation is really what we're focused at today at this Economic Summit, making sure that people like you stay here, succeed, you have a better connection to that next generation. What was your message to the folks in there today?
Yeah, so I'm an economist and was bookending this event with Neil Kashkari and just laying out what I'm seeing in the economy right now. And I think that you have to look at our economy right now and, of course, view it through the lens of how bad the pandemic has been for us and what we needed to do to help bail ourselves out of the abyss that Neil described this morning. And to bail ourselves out took tremendous fiscal policy, took unprecedented amounts of monetary policy, and now we're paying the price for that a little bit with extremely high inflation and a dose of medicine that we probably don't want to face down in terms of, needing to tighten up interest rates and needing to deal with a lot of uncertainty about how do we unwind from so much poured into an economy.
We were spoiled.
We were.
I mean, we were really spoiled.
Yeah.
I mean, I grew up in an era when I remember when interest rates were beyond what farmers could even pay. And the government was saying, just take this money, and people were losing farms because of it. And then the next thing you know, Joel Heitkamp grew up in a house with one TV and now he's got 6. I mean, I don't know what I have to whine about. I've been, my generation has been very, very fortunate when it comes to the economy. And so the first little sign of inflation, I'm supposed to overreact, right. and I'm not there.
No, I think that's sensible. I think the spoiling also happened during the pandemic. A pandemic as severe as what we dealt with, you would have expected some disruption, you would have expected some longer-term unemployment, you would have expected some business and bank failure. Our policies were so good that we didn't let anything fail, and that's not normal. That's not capitalism. Capitalism is a profit and loss system. You have failure sometimes, and now we're trying to return to that system a little bit where people are taking bets and sometimes it's not working out. But to get there involves all of this just hard work of sometimes saying no and not giving the economy everything that it might want, which is a lot of sugar.
So as an economist, and I think you just answered this, but I want to ask it in a different way. There was such a fear that we were going to go back into a recession, into a depression, and because this engine of the U.S. economy was just going to get started again, that we did pour money into it, and money that we didn't necessarily have. And so how foolish was that? Because, I'm not speaking on behalf of all farmers, but I've got a friend who got an $80,000 check in the mail. He didn't know what it was for.
Yep.
I mean, he didn't know why he got it. He's like, okay, the federal government sent me this. Now he learned, and he spent it, but I would argue he didn't need it. And so did we goof up as society and as a government by throwing money around?
I think there's some of that. I think a lot of the spending was understandable because there was just such a feeling of you shouldn't lose your job over a pandemic that has been, that has led to mandated shutdowns, that we don't want people out taking risks for their work. And a lot of it was well-intentioned, and that's what makes it frustrating to now be able to look at it and say, gosh, we could have probably, been a little more surgical in our tactics. There's a debate among economists right now. Neil kind of hit on this. He said, we felt like we should go all in on this because if you don't, you possibly risk the error of leaving some people out, And there was a debate among Democratic economists on should we actually be a little more tactical. And there's a gentleman named Larry Summers, he used to be Harvard's president, and he's been extremely outspoken the whole time saying the thing that we've lost now by going all in with the bazooka that's been described this morning is that next round of stimulus that we might need. So let's say that in the next few months the Fed really messes up the economy with their interest rate policies. You could imagine Congress needing to be there to help. And does the American will really feel like helping anymore?
The credit card's getting full.
Yeah.
Want to ask you a little bit about where you think we are going to be able to compete on a global scale, because the one thing that the pandemic showed us is where our weaknesses are. The auto industry is a perfect example. You go through shelves now. You call stores ahead of time to say, do you have? You and I never used to have to do that, right? You just, okay, they've got that, I'll run over there quick. I mean, are we going to be a different economy, period, forever now?
I think there will be some disruptions that take a really long time to play out, and there will be some inventory management decisions that are a lot different. So according to supply chain researchers, last Christmas's orders just came in. So the way that we manage logistics and long-term planning, Christmas is like a huge element of inventory for a lot of places, and they're getting last Christmases now. I think they're going to rethink how are we working with our vendors and our suppliers. And cash has become king throughout this. If you have cash, you're able to get things and to jump in line on the supply chain. So the specifics of where will we be less or more reliant in certain industries, it's hard to predict, but I think there could be a bigger picture treatment of how thin do we want to run our inventories, because the U.S. the last many years has tried to go as thin as possible on inventory management. Everything is just in time, and that's helped them remain extremely profitable until China shuts down.
Well, Doctor, in fairness to you, anybody who doesn't believe what you just said, drive by a car lot.
Yes. Yep.
I mean, drive by a car lot.
Yep.
I remember some of the, I'm not going to mention the auto dealers because they're no different than the other dealer, but some of my hometown auto dealers don't have near the inventory on the lot they used to have.
Yep.
And when you go and talk to them about, hey, what do you think? They say, well, okay, you're going to have to wait till this point to get it, but we'll get you that. I mean, they're incredibly honest, but I'm not sure that isn't going to be the case forever now.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's right. The interwoven aspects of the supply chain and just our reliance on other countries, I think I hope it doesn't lead to skepticism about trade, because I think trade is a tremendous force for good, but it should lead to awareness of what is your alternative, what's your substitute, what happens if a country just goes to war, like Ukraine right now, and you are completely shattered in terms of what you were expecting and getting from them. What's your plan B? And I think that maybe this period has forced a lot more opportunity cost thinking for employers.
Yeah, I think lithium and some other things people are learning a lot more about than what they had hoped. I want to go back to the workforce issue just a little bit, because post-COVID, I was one of those individuals that felt, and I still believe I was right about this because it wasn't needed, but the government was putting out there 6 additional weeks, or months I should say, of unemployment, and they left it up to the state. The state could take it down to 3. North Dakota took it down to 3. I applauded Governor Burgum for that, because it's like, look, we're up, we're moving, get back to work, those type of things. what I was wrong about was, my belief was that the quicker you shut off the unemployment benefits, the more apt we are and the quicker we're going to get back to that full workforce.
Yep.
We're not.
Yep.
And I don't know that we're ever going to.
Yeah, and that's been puzzling.
What happened?
So it's been puzzling. So something that hasn't been mentioned today that I think is playing a role is when you look at all of the stimulus that people secured, a lot of it went into the stock market, and the stock market has been remarkably up the last couple of years during COVID. So they were getting their stimulus, the market was at a bottom, and they were investing in Robinhood stocks, and it went up significantly. So there are a lot of young people, I have them over at Ndsu, who are extremely leveraged on Robinhood, and they're making additional money doing that. So I think some of it is this like rotation into this is really easy to make $200. I'm puzzled though too, and I think, Joel, some of the younger people are just like finding ways to live that are just extremely frugal and cautious, and we should be happy about that. But it doesn't quite make sense to us.
No. Well, and the dual income family is
they're pooling with friends and doing things that are just it's great to see, but they're living on less than you would expect.
Right. Well, and maybe they're smarter. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe they're living their life in a way where I was, Sue and I were all in. We're like, got to get to this, got to get to that goal, got to get to this. And maybe they've got it right. The one thing that I don't talk about enough on this show when we talk about employees and where we're at today with the economy is what happens with seasonal help. I mean, we're going into that. Summer isn't long here in the upper Midwest, but we do have summer. And you can't find summer help. I mean, you can't. You just, how do we solve that? Because, and I blame hockey camp, baseball camp, all this. We fought for summer jobs when I was young. You can't get a kid to do a summer job now. How do you fix that?
Yeah, so getting our own kids to do it, I think is, you're trying to fight water that's running downhill. I think that's a tough fight. I'm an immigration guy and believe that, there's a lot of value in bringing immigrants here to try to help with some of that. I was in Alabama earlier in my career and saw some really bad policies that affected the Alabama tomato harvest, and they were racist policies, and the argument was we need to get our own kids to do it. Our own kids wouldn't do it. So if there are more favorable pathways to bringing foreign immigrants here to do some of the work, I think that's a desirable play. And one unknown is anyone from Ukraine interested in coming and moving to an area that's
because we were going there,
so similar to North Dakota. I mean, maybe there's something there.
Right. I got to tell you, Scott, that is so refreshing to hear, because when you talk to businesses, when you get them one-on-one, when you get past all this politics of color and whether you can get elected to just simply saying one catchphrase, that kind of thing, when you just talk the common sense to businesses, they agree with what you just said. They completely agree with what you just said. And they know the workforce. And I'm going to give you an example where this played out in my life. My sister built a place next to me, and she had drywallers that came in, and these guys were just working fools. They were up there, and this is hard labor, and they're playing kind of a Spanish polka music, and these guys had a Spanish heritage to them. Sue and I walked up to kind of poke around, nose around, and basically bug them, and I'm like, man, I love the music. They didn't speak any English, but you know what? They got the job done, and they got the job done right, and they got it done fast, and I'll take that any day of the week.
Absolutely. Barry Goldwater used to imagine in Arizona where Mexicans were moving freely back and forth to Arizona, and it's not that long ago politically to imagine a country like that where they're going back to Mexico on weekends to be with their families and coming back because we need them during the week. California needs them tremendously too, and so do we.
There's a reason you're the dean already of the school business. Thank you for coming on.
To be on.
I appreciate it. We're going to have more of these conversations when we come back right here on Beck News. Welcome back to Down the Road. I've been involved in media now for quite some time. I actually been working in radio for 17 years and doing TV now for a couple. And the one thing that I realize is that my family doesn't like it when I use them as examples in the different forms of media that I use. So you know what? Tough cookies for them. I'm going to do it right now. I look at my two daughters who are in their mid-30s as perfect examples of the conversation that we're having today. What drives them? What makes them do what they're doing? What makes them raise their children here in the upper Midwest? What gets them active in their communities? What drives their life, for lack of a better way of putting it? If you look at my girls, what you see is two individuals that knew that the road to success financially and securely is really, that focus needed to be on education. That by getting a good education, you could open up those doors, those windows. You might have to take on some college debt. In their particular case, they did. They took on that debt. But you know what they did? One of them became a lawyer. One of them became a nurse practitioner. Both of those services are in need, right? So they got jobs. They own businesses. They are invested into many different avenues. And they started families. They have kids. So what did they want, or what do they want with their life now? They've kind of gotten what we'd call the American dream, the house, the family, all of that. Here's what I think they want. They want bike paths. They want good public schools. They want the type of things that allow their children to do what they've done. And if you talk to both of them, and granted, they're growing out of that phase of their life, but if you talk to them and you say, what's the biggest challenge of being a parent in 2022? Both of those young women are going to tell you the same thing. Daycare. It's daycare. Being able to continue to succeed in business, succeed in private practice, and do all of those things, and yet make sure that your kids are being looked after and everything's going to be fine when you get home and you take them to the hockey game, or you take them to dance or piano recital, or wherever you're going to find that those kids are interested in going, right? You need daycare. And when we talk today about jobs, when we talked about the economy, the one thing I think that we didn't focus on enough is lifestyle. What happened post-COVID is people realized that when they left work, they didn't miss it. And maybe they didn't even miss the money, right? Because that gravy train's come to a close. That whole you can get paid unemployment for an extended period of time, that's done. In other words, they've got to find a way to pay their bills, but it isn't with the job that they had. They're finding different ways to pay those bills, or they're finding that they can get by on one income as a family to get those bills paid, and that they don't miss having that dual income. So how do we get them back into the workforce? Because we need them back in the workforce. I don't know the answer to that. I have ideas, just like you have ideas. I have things that were talked about here today as examples of what could or should happen. But I think a lot of the conversation needs to turn to one word, and it's Friday. So why Friday? Because Friday's a symbol, right? It could be Monday, could be Tuesday, could be whatever day. But I'm going to use Friday as an example. If we're afraid to look at an employee now and say, look, work 4/10s, we'll give you Friday off. We realize that 3 days off a week now is the very least amount you're willing to work for. That if that's what it takes, is to make sure that you can be efficient for us from home, in many cases on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. We'll work around your life and your schedule. And so take Friday off. Have a 3-day weekend all the time. You're going to get their attention with that. I know that the older I get, the more I look at that and say, if I'm going to keep up the pace that I've kept up for my 60 years here on God's earth, that the one thing I'm going to need or be looking at in the future is Fridays. I'm going to be asking myself, do I want to be working every Friday? The Friday is just a symbol. It really is. It's flexibility. That's what people are looking for. Let me give you an example of my life. I get up every morning before 5 o'clock, but 5 o'clock the alarm goes off. By the time I leave my house, I've read everything I can read to do my job in radio and to do my job on TV. I'm going to read the New York Times. I'm going to read the Wall Street Journal. I'm going to watch Fox News. I'm going to watch CNN. I'm going to watch all these different attitudes so that I see what everybody's thinking, because it's my job to agitate. It's my job to get you talking and sometimes to get you mad at me, right? And quite frankly, I think I've proven I've been pretty good at that. There's a lot of you looking at the TV right now wanting to throw a pillow at it and say, you're right, you're very good at that. That being said, you get up at 5. By the time I pull back into my driveway, it's usually 5:30, 6 o'clock at the earliest. So that's 12 hours. That's 12 hours of the day that I've spent making sure that I was doing what I needed to for my job. That's a lot. So the only thing that I say about these jobs is on Fridays, don't expect me to be somewhere in the summer in the afternoon, because by the time 1 o'clock rolls around on Friday, I'm going to be pretty hard to find, because by then I've got way over 45 hours in on the week. Now, why is that so important to me? Because without it, I'd go nuts. That's right. Without that time, without some time to just say, all right, I got that done. You know, and that's what these young families are thinking about. They want to get to the point where it's like they are at about 9 o'clock at night when the kids are finally put to bed. It's like, and they're not sitting there worrying about dishes or vacuuming the floor. They're not. They're sitting there worrying about, finally, I have some own personal and private time. Now, I'm making this sound harder than what it might be. And I realize that many of you watching this had it tougher than what, for example, my girls have it. But with all due respect, that doesn't matter, because the people that I'm talking about now are more in demand than you were. I mean, they are. They're more in demand than what I was. When I was young, UND was on semesters, and NDSU was on the quarter system, right? They didn't get done at NDSU until UND had been out of college for the year. You know, you had been out for at least 2 weeks. That was good fortune on my part, because the good jobs, the good summer jobs, were gone by the time the NDSU folks got out. So I ended up getting a chance to run heavy equipment. I ended up getting a chance to get a union job. I remember in 1979 getting paid $10 an hour. In 1979. Because the union brothers were the ones that built it in so that I could get it. Now, granted, I was just temporary, but you're telling me you went to took that summer job? I don't know that there's ever going to be a time when my grandkids take summer jobs. And that's too bad, because I think you learn a lot through a good summer job. But that's part of the workforce. That's part of what's needed in the workforce. And so how do we get back to that? To where the priority isn't all just hockey camp and basketball camp and baseball camp and swimming and you know, to where it isn't all about those things, but it's all about, you know, maybe saying, hey, do you want fries with that every now and then? I don't know that we're ever gonna. And I think if you talk to most small businesses, I think that they'd agree with me. But if there's a way to change it, I think we all need to work towards it. When we come back, some closing comments as we end our trip down the road. So the hearing is going on for Judge Jackson, a federal judge that's been appointed to the Supreme Court. Now, many of you that are watching this show don't come from the same side of the aisle that I do. I think she's going to make an excellent Supreme Court justice. Now, here's the thing. Many Republicans, when she was placed into the federal court, believe so too. Maybe not on the Supreme Court, but they certainly voted for her to be on that federal bench. Now, I want to give you... I want to talk about something that repulsed me, that I found was so indecent that it needs to be just at least brought to people's attention. When she was being questioned by the Senate Judiciary Committee on whether or not she should be given a recommendation to go forward on the Supreme Court, she was asked on a scale of 1 to 10, how Christian is she? Can you imagine that? Can you imagine if the founding fathers had been in that room when they wrote out that this country is going to have freedom of religion? You know, That to me means you can be any religion you want. It's your life, right? To ask that question was disgusting. And Lindsey Graham owes an apology to her, and quite frankly, an apology to everyone. It's been good riding with you folks.